those together. Let me quickly review where we left off on Thursday. So Thursday, we started graphing quadratic functions. We actually started with taking a graph that was already done and identifying the basic information from it. Vertex, axis of symmetry, y-intercept, telling whether the graph opens up or down, domain range, max and min, and what the maximum or minimum value is. From there, we went through the process of graphing a quadratic function. So remember, do keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, because although I'm a math teacher, I'm also an adult. I know that there's a good chunk of stuff that you learn in any math class or any class, period, that you will never, ever use. I get that part. However, you will always use the critical thinking, the multifaceted problems when you work through real life. You're gonna have to know how to do more than one thing at once, or how to solve a complex problem, or to use decision making. Math classes teach you that along with all of your classes. So you don't have to like math, but you do have to learn how to process information, how to make decisions. But that's just as an aside. Back to what we're doing. So with a quadratic function, first step is to find the axis of symmetry. Put that on the graph first. You use the axis of symmetry to find the vertex, which should be the highest and lowest point on the graph. Once you have the axis of symmetry and the vertex, then you use your calculator to make your table. Your table will give you the other 4 points you need to finish off the rest of the graph, which if you have a graphing calculator, plug it into the graphing calculator, pull the numbers off the table. If you don't, then the only other option, which is the time-consuming one, is to take all the numbers and plug them in. Again, that's the time-consuming option. I wouldn't recommend that unless you don't have a choice. So on Thursday, we did example 1. We're going to do 2 more examples of graphing, and that's going to finish out unit number 4. So remember, unit number 4 content is due on, unit number 4 homework and the test is due on Wednesday. And we're about a couple weeks away from your retake of the first semester final, which we will have 2 days of in-class review for that. Let's go ahead and push on. So example 2, you've got y equals negative x squared minus 4x plus 5. Negative x squared minus 4x plus 5. So we're going to follow the same steps, same process that we did for first example. So the first thing we're going to have to tackle, let's move it up a little bit here, is to find the axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry is AOS. So formula for the axis of symmetry, negative b over 2a. You identify your A, B, and C. Remember, A is the number in front of x squared, so A equals negative 1. B is the number in front of x, B is negative 4. C is the number with no variable, C is equal to 5. So plug everything in, minus negative 4 over 2 times negative 1. So the opposite of -4 is 4. 2 times -1 is -2. That gives you -2. So your axis of symmetry is -2. Which means you go to your graph, go to the x-axis, go to where -2 is, and you draw your vertical line. Again, my line is a dotted line. You can draw your line however you like. Solid line, dotted line, doesn't make a difference. So now we do the vertex. So remember, the vertex is a point. The vertex is an x and y point. The x value is the axis of symmetry. So we know what the x value is. It's -2. To get the y value, that's when you have to plug in. So we're going to take -2, put it back into the function. So everywhere you see x, plug in -2. And remember, if you have questions, either come off of mute and ask, or type the question in the chat. Don't just sit there, because then I get to assume that you know what you're doing. That's all I can do is assume. It's not like you're in the classroom next to me and I can walk by your desk and look at your notes. So then we solve out. So remember, order of operations applies. So -2 squared gives you a +4. Minus 4 times -2 plus 5. That minus sign does not get connected to the -2 because the -2 has an exponent on it. Remember, exponents comes before multiplication in the order of operations. Now you can do something with that negative. So negative parentheses 4 is the same thing as -1 times 4, which is -4. -4 times -2, 8, plus 5. -4 plus 8 is 4. 4 plus 5 is 9. So there's your vertex. So you go to your graph. Put your vertex point on there. So our graph starting to take shape. Any questions so far? Give you a few moments for those of you who are copying it down before we move to the table. We'll also give you a quick moment to check out the attendance here. Take care. So now we start to put this table together. The vertex serves as the middle of your table. The vertex is the middle of your table. So to get the rest of the table, you're going to pick 4 x numbers. You're going to pick 4 numbers that are less than the vertex. And then 2 numbers that are greater than the vertex. So 2 on each side. Now let's let the calculator do some work. So again, for those of you who do not have the graphing calculator app, if you don't have a graphing calculator, that's one thing. In the chat, I did put the app that you can use to download to your Chromebook. I just put it back in the chat just so that you can download it. All right, so let's go to our graphing calculator. We're going to put in negative x squared minus 4x plus 5. There we go. So y equals the negative sign. If you need a negative sign, it sits at the bottom near the enter. So it's negative x squared minus 4x plus 5. If you press graph, you should see what the graph will look like. And then if you hit second and graph, now you get the table. So now you get a table, which works out perfectly because now you can identify what's going to go inside of your table. So -2, -2, positive 9. There's your vertex. So you're taking 2 numbers above it, 2 numbers below it. So you've got -4, 5. -3 is aligned with 8. -1 with 8. And 0 with 5. Again, if you have a graphing calculator, then getting the points are easy. If you don't have a graphing calculator, again, the app for your Chromebook is in the chat, or go buy one of your own, or go use a sibling's, or go use a friend's, or if you don't want to use one, you're going to have to solve it out by hand. But when you submit your Unit 4 test, and definitely when you do this on the final, you will have to produce the table. No table, no credit. Take the points, bottom on the graph. Your curve. That's it. Problem's over. And most of the work comes from doing the axis of symmetry and doing the vertex. After that, calculator can realistically take care of everything else. Questions, examples, example 2. They're showing up late. They're still 4, 8, 7, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. All right, so we've got one more example of graphing before we finish up unit number 4. Remember, the unit 4 work is due on Wednesday. As I showed you already, after Wednesday, the penalties start. It's 10% per day. Those of you who have still not turned in unit 3 work, again, if you wait to the last minute, don't expect that you get full credit. You get 40% of whatever grade you would have gotten. All right, so last example, should say example 3. 5 equals 3x squared minus 4. So again, we solve the problem the exact same way. So you get it out the way. So you have A, B, and C. So A is 3. B is the number in front of X. There is no X, so that's 0. C is the number with no variable, -4. So if you can at least identify A, B, and C, I'll at least give you 1 point. Now, yes, this problem is probably anywhere between 8 to 10 points. So 1 point, yeah, it ain't much, but it's better than nothing. So, axis of symmetry. -b over 2a. So in this case, b is 0. 2 times 3. So -0 doesn't make any sense. 0 can't be negative. 0 divided by 6, which is 0. Now we do our vertex. Vertex is a point. 0 counts as the x value. To get the y value, we now plug 0 back into the problem. Then remember order of operations. So exponent comes first. 3 times 0 minus 4. 3 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 4 is -4. So there's your axis of symmetry, and there's your vertex. So that's what goes on the graph first. Put a dotted line or solid line, whichever you prefer, down x equals 0. And then put your point on -4. Any questions before we continue? All right, let's make our table. So remember, the vertex goes in the middle of the table. Vertex goes in the middle of the table. To get the rest of the table, we're going to use our graphing calculator. So again, I will put in the chat again. Those of you who do not have a graphing calculator, strongly suggest you download the app and put it onto your Chromebook. So clear that out. So we type in the function they gave us, which was 3x squared minus 4. Take a sneak peek at the graph so that we know what it's going to look like. Second graph, then we get our table. So remember, all of your graphs should have 5 points. And there are 5 points that you got from your table. So when you submit your homework and do your test, if you just put a squiggly line on there, you're not going to get credit for that graph. That's not a graph, that's just a squiggly line. So 0, -4 is there. So we use two numbers less than that, -2, -1. Two numbers greater than that, 1 and 2. So you look right in the middle of that table, that's what we're going to be using. So again, if you have a graphing calculator to use, that's perfect, use it. If you don't, I'm giving you the extension to download, or your neighbors, your friends, siblings, etc. Put the other points on the graph. And there's your curve. There's your curve. Again, doing the graph of a quadratic is not hard. Just requires you to put in a little bit of work. Any questions? Example 3. All right, so that's going to conclude